provided us with an excellent summary of Dubai and RERA's approach to ensuring that Dubai is a sustainable property market and a global city, along with the Hong Kongs and Singapore. So thank you very much indeed for that. And I think that's provided an excellent platform for us now to open up the discussion to everyone. So I think there are some roving microphones on the floor. The lady at the front, I think. That's them. Oh, we might need to borrow them from the stage. So who would like to ask a question? Or say something? The one at the back here? Put your hand up again, sir. Karen will bring you the microphone. And if you can give your name and organisation, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Kean Farah. I'm working with a Women Limited, which is the properties development arm of ECC. I just had a question on flipping, because I know that EMR and Ahil have a rule in place where if an investor comes on board, they can't actually sell on the property until they pay down 40% value. My question is, we should try and make this a rule throughout the market to try and make sure that we don't get through unsustainable levels of price increase.
So the question is, you can say, why not make the no flipping a rule until when? Until the property is completed, or
until 40% or a certain level has been paid out.
So we're seeing the market introduce measures to make flipping less attractive and more difficult. But the question is, should the government make some new rule to stop flipping? Marwan, would you like to comment on that?
I think the real estate market needs some percentage of speculator. Otherwise, they will not be able for flipping or gaining some. But the last measure, land department introduced to the market, which is increasing the transfer fees to a 4%, was one of the good measures we can see that it's implemented. Second, nowadays the developer are asking for 30%, 50% down payment in some of the projects, which is another mechanism for them to make sure only end user can afford to come and work like that. The third mechanism I can see that's working also for speculator is land department now collecting the transfer fees at the time of purchasing property. Previously it used to be at the handover. So all these measures is happening, I think, with the market mechanism developer introducing this can help out the speculation issue that's happening in the market. But even though with all these measures, I don't think so we can stop the speculation at all, because this is an open market where everybody can gain and lose.
Thank you very much. Anyone want to add to?
I just don't think you can legislate it. You can't stop it, because when people want to gamble, they will gamble. And if property happens to be the vehicle they're gambling on, it's a risk people take. They're all adults. As Marwan regulator has always told us, you cannot legislate against fools. Because if people want to behave like that, you can't stop them. They'll go the back way, they'll write MOUs, contracts and things, which maybe would never stand up in any court of law. But they're happy playing. The developer needs to continue to have contact with the person that they have a contract with. That's probably the key to making people accountable and understand that if they have a contract with the developer, they have to pay for it. And that's probably the best way to make sure that we've got controls in place.
At JLL, one of our forecasts for this year was that the residential market would continue growing in terms of rental price, but not at the same rate as we have seen in the last 18 months or so. And one of the reasons for that view was the measures which have been taken both by the government but by the market itself. And I think we are beginning to see evidence that there's a little bit of steam being taken out of the market, and that is a healthy thing. Next question. Don't be shy, come on. Question at the front here.
Hi, I'm Graham Hughes from CBRE London. Taking up Elaine's point about the lack of
I'm not sure if that microphone is working. Is it switched on?
Can you hear me? Is that
Yeah.
better? Sorry. Taking up Elaine's point about the lack of affordable housing for large sectors of the population. Most European countries in mature markets make it a precondition of planning permission that there is a percentage of houses made available into the affordable market. Has this been considered locally?
Again, probably a question for Marwan.
As a government, there is no such policy for that. But the way I see it from the latest registration of property with us in RERA, last month, in March, there was 10 new projects registered. 3 of them, I can consider them affordable houses. So it's a market-driven thing. There's no such a policy for that.
It's interesting that I was in Cairo yesterday at a conference, and affordable housing, social housing is a real big issue in Egypt. And one of the speakers there was suggesting that in Egypt they should follow what happens in the UK and elsewhere, where developers, in return for a planning consent for mid-market or upmarket housing, have to enable a certain proportion of the units to be affordable housing, or enable affordable housing elsewhere. And it would be interesting to see if that does develop in Egypt. Do you have a view, sir, that you want to add to your question?
Well, I think, we're talking about sustainability, and I think clearly there is a big gap. It's true in London as well, where there's also speculation. I appreciate it's not always easy in a free market to legislate against speculation, albeit governments do tend to find ways of legislating when they want to. For instance, you can't gamble on much else in the locality, so investing in property shouldn't necessarily be regarded as sacrosanct. But I would say that there is great inequality here, particularly I think Qatar has had a bad reputation recently with a lot of workers not being housed properly. So I think there is a social imperative going forward over the next 10 years to look at the very significant disparities in the income profiles. And I think currently a lot of workers here are living in relatively poor quality accommodation. And I think anything that could be done to address that over the next 5 to 10 years, I think would be welcome.
Well, you see,
Thank
that's
you.
interesting, isn't it? Because actually, if I may, our labour accommodation is extremely good. I don't have concerns there, because the regulations are so precise and fines are very heavy. So for labour, they're fine. It's the people in the middle, those who are earning a salary of 4,000 dirhams a month, 5,000 dirhams a month. What are they supposed to do? Because to lease a basic apartment would be a studio, which means you've got labour, because then you've got all this visa business. You can't necessarily have your family here anyway if you don't have a certain amount of money, so you can address that. But clearly the problem is for white-collar workers who are, just not paid a lot.
Well, in practice, they tend to be, when rents rise here, there's a ripple effect, and they have to move further and further out of Dubai, and that introduces other problems in travel to work patterns and congestion. So, Fergal, would you like to add something?
Yeah, just your point, and going back to my early days in Ireland, they introduced similar, the certain percentage had to be social housing, which works in a large residential housing market. Here we've got sort of two markets. We've got a villa market, and we've the villas are aimed at a particular segment of society. What we're seeing is a trend in terms of people looking to do deals here tends to be, what Elaine said, pitching at that level of employee. And let's take, for an example, the hospitality sector. So people who work in hospitality and hotels that are not necessarily front of house or GMs, they need somewhere to live. They don't want to live in Sharjah and work on the Palm, so they need somewhere to live. And the significant problem that has been faced by people that we know and have come to short of it. You know, there's plenty of it around, but it's finding land or incentivizing an owner of that land to sell it so that everybody wins and that you're unlikely, frankly, here to create a ghetto situation. It's not that kind of place. But you would incentivize people, whether that's through some government subsidy or whether that's through, there's a number of ways of doing it and they've improved it all over the world. You've got rent controls in New York, you've got plenty of examples where that can be done. I don't believe that you're going to get a developer to give up a third or 20% of the villa project out of the Arabian ranches for affordable housing, but with the associated infrastructure and transportation that's required to bring that level of economic employee into their job. So that would be for me. We're hearing it now for nearly a year, the lack of usable and suitable land, because there's no incentive for the seller to provide it for that purpose. There's buckets of incentive for the end user to buy it and to develop it. So that's to me is a big mismatch.
But one of the difficulties across the Middle East is because land in itself is a popular asset class, the price of land when it gets traded is often higher than a developer can afford to pay for a given use. It's not just in affordable housing, we're seeing it in budget hotels in Dubai, where one of the reasons why there's lots of 5-star hotels and not so many 3-star hotels is that a developer wanting to build a 3-star hotel cannot afford to buy land in many cases. And maybe there's a case for the planning authorities to become more involved in their land use zoning for affordable housing and other desirable uses, because it is an example of market failure that we're seeing. Other Don, would you like to add something?
Could, if you happy with it, just add a couple of comments on. Actually, I think the supply of new accommodation, almost in every sector, in most Middle East markets, is quite high standard, and particularly in Qatar and the worker accommodation, it seems to be the same case here in worker accommodation. So actually, the supply of new accommodation is actually very, very high indeed. What we're facing on a sustainability point of view is actually the opposite side of the equation. It's the obsolescence of older style properties where infrastructure's changed or construction standards weren't adequate to meet what we're looking for the present standards of accommodation. So from a sustainability point of view, you can also almost get the sound bites from looking at the opposite side of the equation, saying where is obsolescence prevalent in the stock of accommodation we've got, and how do you look at that and how do you correct it?
Good point from Don. Other questions from the floor? I'm keen to hear your views. Sir, at the two-thirds of the way back there, please, Karen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Haridas Nair. I work with National Bank of Abu Dhabi. Just following up on that question on affordability and about how end user engagement would probably lead to a sustainable